Well, hello, everyone. It's time for Share in the Chair. I'm Darrell Watkins, the senior minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. Share in the Chair is where we meet on Wednesday nights, 6 o'clock Eastern, to discuss various things with religious leaders from all over. Before we get into tonight's discussion, just a reminder that we have midday prayer Monday through Saturday at noon Eastern. So join us for that. It's 5 minutes or less usually. Most of those days, Monday through Saturday, but then on Thursdays, there's actually a little homily and some prayers, and that actually goes about 15 minutes on Thursdays, which is tomorrow. So it's like a little mini worship service. So midday prayer, Mondays through Saturdays, and you get a little extra on Thursday. Then on Monday night, we have Christians and Cocktails, a panel discussion where we discuss everything in the world with humor and with irreverence and with sincerity. It's just a great conversation. Then on Sundays, we live broadcast our 10:30 service. You can be in the room at 9 or 10:30, but you have to reserve your spot and wear a mask, or you can stay home, stay safely at home, watch from home live at 10:30 every Sunday on YouTube and Facebook. And then, of course, Wednesday nights, we do Share in the Chair. Tonight's guest on Share in the Chair is our very own co-minister of worship arts, almost said music, that's old school, co-minister of worship arts at the Sunshine Cathedral, Sara Burns. And so people who are familiar with our worship services know what she does musically, and then a lot of what is happening that she's not even personally seeming to be doing. She's still organizing. She chooses music. She chooses who does what music. I mean, she's a powerhouse behind the scene as well as what you see on the dais. So, but we're not going to talk a lot about her musical skill because it's obvious. You want to know about her musical skill? Watch us on Sunday morning, and there it is on display. We want to know about Sara, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight: is Sara's spiritual journey as well as her ministry at the Sunshine Cathedral. So, thanks for doing this, Sara.
You're welcome. Twist my arm.
Well, usually when I call up or send an email or text, I'm like, I need you. She just immediately is like, okay, what am I singing? Whose funeral? Whose wedding? What is it? And this time I'm like, no, I want you to talk. And then there was a little bit of panic, but
crickets.
I should have got her to sing the interview. She would not have hesitated. But here she is, bravely facing my difficult questions. And actually, the first one is pretty easy because it's just your life. Mm-hmm. You grew up in the Assemblies of God, Pentecostal. Yep. And you seem so not Pentecostal to me. So that's so funny to me that you that you grew up Pentecostal. And I guess your dad was also a performer, but then also a Pentecostal minister, and now is a liberal minister in a liberal denomination. So his path is not so different than yours, or maybe I should say yours isn't so different than his. So, but you grew up Pentecostal, and then took a little detour through Calvary Chapel, which is I guess all of the harshness of Pentecostalism without any of the fun, and and then you wound up at the Sunshine Cathedral. Sort of serendipity. We needed a vocalist. We needed an artist, and you were one. And that all. And then though now you're in leadership, and you identify. I never hear you talk about Sunshine Cathedral as your job, but as your church. And so, how is your spiritual life as part of Sunshine Cathedral different than your spirituality as a Pentecostal young person?
Well, growing up in Assembly of God, I mean, I grew up in church before we moved to the Assembly of God, and I started singing in churches and in the tent meetings, the revival meetings that they had in the summer at 5, and then at like public events when they would have the choir sing or something, I would join in and sing along with that as well. But growing up in the Assembly of God church, basically our social life was the church. So you were there on Sunday for Sunday school, and Sunday for service, and Sunday night for Sunday night, and Wednesday for what we call missionettes, or like a Girl Scout kind of thing, and then Friday night for youth group. So like my social life was the church, and all of my friends were at the church. And I would say actually it's similar with Sunshine, as my social life is still the church, but it's not so formal in that I'm there 5 times a week. I'm usually right now during COVID only there once a week. But and then church back then was memorizing Bible verses, because as a kid you don't really understand like the spirituality of everything, and you just know that you're supposed to read these books through this time, and you're supposed to memorize these Bible verses and know the stories inside and out. And the more you know, as in the youth group settings and like the missionette groups and stuff, you learn badges and you can progress and get awards and things for being the smart Bible kid, and teaching vacation Bible school in the summer for the younger ones and things like that. So it was more of an educational spiritual background really than like a relationship with God, if you would.
So, and then when you were ready to, you majored in musical theater, and you went to a liberal arts college in New England.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go to what was Rhode Island College, to
Rhode Island College?
Why did you decide to do that instead of going to, say, Oral Roberts University? Or what made you do liberal arts university instead of like a religious university?
Well, I had no interest in going to a religious university because that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to do musical theater, and that religious university would not lead me to that path. So I wanted to go to Berklee School of Music, actually, and
in Boston, yeah.
Or the New England Conservatory, which is also in Boston. But I was paying my way through college, and so I went to the school I could afford, which at the time, the one that had the best musical theater program, and actually an actual musical theater degree, because a lot of the schools in New England had theater degrees or music degrees, but none of them had a musical theater. So the one school that did was Rhode Island College, and I could afford to work and go there, and so that's what I did.
Oh wow!
Sometimes I wish I had gone to Berklee, but you never know. Your choices lead you to where you are.
Yeah. Also, why musical theater? Why not just music or conducting or vocal performance? Or what was specific about musical theater that drew you?
Well, I love singing, and like you mentioned, my dad was in musical theater. He actually went to New York and was a member of Equity for a little bit of time. So I had that background. Musical theater was all over our house. Carousel was constantly on the TV, Oklahoma, all the old school stuff. And we would sing a lot, like at family gatherings. Dad would pull out the guitar and we would sing. So I knew I needed to be a singer, and but I also loved show tunes. So I knew that musical theater was the route, and I went to the local performing arts center with my grandfather one time to see to see Les Mis, and goodness gracious, I didn't want to cry.
Oh wow, no, this is good. This is good stuff.
To see Les Mis, and the girl was singing On My Own, and telling the story always gets me. I knew it would. Anywho, being in that moment, and even though I was in like the third balcony and she was singing on a black stage, complete darkness, I was actually singing with her, and I didn't even know the song at the time, but that's what convinced me that I needed to go into musical theater.
And
thank you.
And of course you did a show, a summer stock production, I remember that, and God knows how many productions in college. And now, I mean, since you've been in South Florida, I know you've done a lot of cabaret work at the Sunshine Cathedral, at festivals around town. You've sang at weddings. We even did a thing on on a day cruise one time. Do you remember our little show we did on a day cruise?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
We will
The boat was
perform
rocking.
anywhere. We will perform anywhere. But not only that, so you still do your thing, right? But not only that, you have brought all of that into our blended worship service, to our worship experience. And so on any given Sunday, in fact, maybe most Sundays, you at Sunshine Cathedral, you may hear a gospel song or participate, like we sing most of the service. We sing about 16 songs in the service. You may hear a gospel song. You may hear like something classical, something from some, long hair composer from way back when. You may hear something from musical theater. You may hear pop music. It may be 10, 20 years old pop music. It may be 40-year-old pop music, which is even better. I mean, I love the classics. And then all of this, you will hear all of these kinds of music, all supporting a theme, all supporting a spiritual message. I think it's really unique in that how we can draw on so many traditions and so many genres to have a blended and holistic worship experience. And so much of that is about the music, and so much of that is about our musical team and our musical choices or whatever. But you are basically, directing, or I guess I'm sort of producing and you're directing or whatever, a performative experience every week.
Right.
But it's also a message. It's also pulling people together in community, although I think theater and film and cabaret and ballet and opera does that anyway. But we're bringing people together, and in this pandemic, even doing it virtually, without borders, without boundaries, bring people together, and then also giving them a message and giving it in lots of different ways. That if you didn't click with the scripture verse, or if you sort of yawn through the sermon, or if your eye rolling throughout the sacrament, there's a song you're going to go out humming. In fact, people tell me all the time that there's a song, and there's some we do over and over and over again, that there's a song, and it's not always the same song, but there's a song that just sticks with them throughout the week. That maybe they wake up humming it, or they do it in the shower or in the car or whatever.
About the music program is that I'm not like, when I first started, I think my first solo was a Christian song, but then I quickly learned that I didn't have to limit myself to that. In fact, the inclusiveness of our words kind of prohibited me from doing some of the more religious repertoire that I had in my songbook. So I spent a lot of time searching online, and my library has grown tremendously for show tunes that actually had the right message. And being the church that we are, that actually won me a fan base of sorts, and became popular because of that, because people, you don't always know all the words when you're singing along to the radio, or you're singing along to a show tune, a CD. But when they're plastered on the back screen wall while somebody's singing them, you're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Right? And one of my all-time favorite moments is when I know that my song has certain lyrics, because I've obviously memorized it and worked on it all week, and you just spur of the moment in your sermon will have a few words right from my song. And then, 10 minutes later, I'm singing those same words. And so it's like, I know we pick from the same, I based my song based on your lectionary, but we don't plan to say the same thing.
Yeah. No, synchronicity happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And in addition to Sunday mornings, which are amazing, you also, and Barbara plays the organ, and you and Tara Sperry are the vocalists. And there are other instrumentalists, and then you choose the music. And then when there was big groups, Barbara directs like the big choir or whatever. And then when it's smaller ensembles, you tend to do that. I mean, there's some switch up or whatever, but
right.
So in addition to all of that, and then there is a holiday concert the first Saturday of every December. We've got one coming up December the 5th. So there's a holiday concert. There's usually a summer cabaret, sometimes a fall cabaret, and then of course a Good Friday musical event, and then just all kinds of extra music for Easter and Christmas Eve. So you've got sort of got a season of, you know what I mean? You've got a season.
Right.
If this were a theater, you have a season you have to plan and prepare
Mhm.
and perform and direct every year.
And it's funny because I kind of, from feedback from other people based on song selections, people seem to think that I've kind of like started this trend of I'll pick a song and then it'll be suddenly all over TV on commercials, or I pick 3 songs for our Christmas concert and then another group in Miami announces their Christmas concert and 3 of their songs, even though different arrangers or whatever,
Mhm.
are the same songs. And so I somehow have this intuitive gift, probably
Mhm.
from God, to pick the songs, and they're not always Christian songs. In fact, most of our songs at this Christmas concert are secular, which
Yeah.
I love that we can do that because it brings people in to hear the message that they need to hear.
Yeah. I do love that. The Apostle Paul said that he tried to be all things to all people in order to reach some. And
Mhm.
I think that's sort of our plan, is that we do a lot of different things, and you're not going to love everything we do, but because we do so many different things, you're probably going to love something that we do.
Right.
And that's what we want. We want everyone to find something, and that because we're not just stuck to one genre or one vocabulary or one tradition, we are able to cast a
Mhm.
wide net and hopefully attract people to a message that will help them believe in themselves and believe that they have sacred value and believe they're God's miracle and not God's mistake, and believe that they're worthy of love, and all those things that we think add value and richness and beauty to someone's life. Now, so you have gifts, musical gifts, maybe some sort of intuitive, where you can sort of plug into the artistic zeitgeist in the world or whatever, like you sort of know what's out there in the ether, and
Mhm.
you're plugging into it. Of course, you have musical, you have drama, you have administrative gifts, and of course religion. You grew up in a religious household, you work in a religious environment, so you have all of these gifts: administration and music and drama and religion, and you get to use all of those together in your ministry at Sunshine Cathedral. How is that different, or if it is, how is that different than how you imagined your artistic career would go?
Well, I mean, every kid that goes to college for musical theater thinks the next step is Broadway, right? So that would have been my ideal career goal and ambition. I have some friends who went to Broadway, and now hearing their stories, they're burned out. They got burned out and they stopped doing music altogether. So a little part of me is like, oh, thank goodness,
Mhm.
right? And I could have gotten when I was in school, I could have also gotten a music education degree, but I never wanted music to become that I gotta get up and go to do my job, right? And so that's why I like that music is now just, within this church environment too, because it's not like what I have to rely on to pay bills. And it can be my artistic outlet and not my, oh good God, not again kind of outlet.
Right.
That's what my day job is for.
Well, and that's right. I think all of our musical talent have multiple gigs, really.
Mhm.
2 of them are music teachers. One is sort of retired. One is a private music teacher, and also a couple of them perform in other venues also.
Mhm.
One is a paralegal. You're an IT goddess. In addition to, so yeah, we that's sort of typically artistic. One of our artists in residence in the balcony, one of our videographer, is also a technical director and teaches theater history, and so yeah, I mean, artists have multiple gigs often, and
Mhm.
that's no the artists of the Sunshine Cathedral are no exception. And that sort of artist lifestyle, I think, is one of the reasons we have such vitality in our arts program, is that we have
Right.
good working artists who do what artists do. They piece together a life of art.
Now, I'm not saying that if a talent scout, contacted me and wanted me to star in some Broadway or even co-star in some
Mhm,
Broadway show that I would ever turn
mhm.
it down.
Yeah,
Absolutely
of
not.
course, we're going to edit that out, though. No one will ever hear those words, but we're editing that out.
I'm waiting for Stephen Sondheim or Frank Wildhorn to write me a song, and I will go proudly sing it.
So, well, that could happen. There was an episode of The Nanny where a Jewish cantor got discovered, got snatched into some Broadway show or whatever. That and the synagogue was devastated, of course. What is so you said how it's different, and you've said some of the things you love about it, but what's the most liberating experience for you? What's the most liberating experience you've had as part of church leadership? When you came, you were volunteering at another church in a sort of a band sort of thing, a worship praise team, and then we recruited you and hired you, and so you were, you'd sing for us, and and then that just became bigger and bigger and bigger role, and now you're running a program. So you found yourself in key leadership, and we know that that's a burden in some ways, and we know that's maybe a creative outlet in lots of ways. But how has it been liberating, or has it not? Has it only been stifling and burdensome? But if it's been liberating, how so?
Well, I like that I have some say. Like before, I was doing the task, the work assigned to me as a section leader. But I like that I have some say in the music that the choir does, and or the say in even some of the service music pieces. Like, you give me that freedom to make suggestions on Higher Love, or This Is Me, or what's another one we did this year? But I Got the Music in Me. Like, I pick some songs and then they make their way into service music, and I like that I'm able to do that and have that spiritual influence on the service music. Growing up, the spirituality at church is a little different too, because growing up as a kid, I thought the Bible was like a history book. At least that's my perception now, is that as a kid, I always thought the Bible was a history book. In fact, my Bible had dates in it for when this event happened and this event happened. And I think it was my first year at Sunshine, you were preaching about Jonah and the whale. And you said something along the lines of, like, of course, the whale didn't spit Jonah out. Like, of course, a fish didn't swallow a human and then spit him out whole. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about it being an allegory and not like truth in history,
Yeah.
So I've revisited stories of the Bible and taken it from that point of view.
Nice. Well, there's also, in case people don't know, surely a lot of people know, but maybe they don't. Sunshine Cathedral is historically and predominantly part of the LGBTQ plus community. From the beginning, we've had a primary affirming outreach to LGBTQ plus people and their allies, their families. That has been, there was a time when same gender love and attraction were actually outlawed in a lot of states. There was a time until pretty recently where marriage equality was really just a pipe dream. There was a time, during the AIDS crisis when people would have trouble even finding a place that would do their funeral or that would provide them pastoral care in their worst moments, or that would be supportive of their families for whatever reason. And so we've historically been that church that tries to fill that need. And it seems like the more we live into that role, the more straight people we actually attract to, because straight people are like, oh, this is a place that loves people and affirms the value of everybody and does not exclude my queer children, siblings, friends, uncles, whatever. And so you were part of, our treasurer is a heterosexual woman on our board. Our board chair is a heterosexual woman. Both of our ministers of worship arts, heterosexual women. Our percussionist, heterosexual woman.
Right.
I mean, you can't throw a dead cat at the Sunshine Cathedral hitting a straight person in leadership, and yet our message is very queer. We're a feature in the queer community, and so you're a leader in a queer identified church. What's that like for you? You were married in our church, You lead, you minister in our church, you perform in our church. What's that like for you? And why? Well, first of all, I'll do part B next. But what's that like for you?
Well, it's like home, really, because I mean, in the theater, and even in high school, before I really knew terminology or anything like that, all my best friends were gay, or gay boys, at least. I didn't have many lesbian friends until Sunshine, but all my best friends were gay, or they didn't know it and later found that out and came out later in life. But and so it's just felt so natural to me. In fact, sing a Broadway song on every other Sunday for people who want to hear Broadway songs. Sure. Hello.
Right.
How much do I have to pay to do that? So I love it. I do have a funny anecdote about my first Thursday rehearsal. The choir director who hired me had said, "Hey, I just got this job. I need an alto section leader. I know you're soprano, but you have a low range and you want to come check it out." And then she said, "But check out the website," because she knew I was straight. And she said, "Check out the website though, because it's a different kind of church." And I said, "Okay." So I checked it out and I was like, "Oh, no problem." But I had a weird thing happen in a theater group with a lesbian once, in that she was harassing me. I was a hooker in the play, and it was dinner theater, and I had to interact with the audience, and she was harassing me, and I felt like turned off by that, right? So like I had no problem with gay men, but I always felt like this weird from a vibe from lesbian women. And so
because of this one obnoxious
because of
audience
this one
person.
really odd person, probably. And that was my only experience. And so I said in the car, I was sitting in the church parking lot waiting for choir to start, and I said in the car, "As long as no woman hits on me, I will stay."
Oh.
And I don't know if I should be offended that no woman hit on me, but
No.
no women hit on me. And some
Right.
of my best friends were women that I met in that church
Well,
group. So
some tipsy
my
person
bias is
at
gone.
dinner theater, some tipsy person in the audience at dinner theater, as opposed to nice people just coming to choir rehearsal.
Right.
It's a different vibe entirely, isn't it?
It is a different vibe, but you only know what you know, and so those
Yeah.
are my, that was a little prayer, because at the time, because I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Unknown, walking into an unknown situation, certainly.
Mhm.
And if you don't mind, you can just say I don't want to talk about that. But if you don't mind talking about it, there was also a time that you really had to sort of stand up on principle. You were at first working with us, singing for us, because your other gig was in the evenings, and it was also at a church.
Mhm.
And once that church, your evening gig, found out what your morning gig was, they told you had to give up your morning gig, because that church was homophobic. I mean, blatantly, proud
Right.
of it.
Which I didn't know. I didn't know at the
Right.
time. So at this other church that I was at for a year, they were like family. We did all the holidays together. It was a very, very small church, and we were like family. And the women met on Wednesdays and the men met on Wednesdays. And in our women's group, because I was kind of frustrated with my day job, we were praying. The women and I were praying, not only for me to meet a guy so that I could get married and be happy, but
Which happened.
right,
Which happened.
but then also for me to find a way to use my music in
Which
a
happened.
paying role.
Which
So
happened.
they prayed for both of those things.
We were the answer to both prayers.
I got those things. But when they found out where it was, they weren't happy with that and told me that I had sinned. If I wanted to take this job, I had sinned, and I would have to go in front of the church and explain everything that I did wrong. And it was devastating, because these people were like my best friends, and they were hurting me, and I didn't understand why. I was loving people, and that was a sin, and I didn't understand that. And so they said, "You either do this or you can't sing here anymore." And so I said, "Okay, bye."
Yeah. Yeah, they
And then
basically made you pick, and lucky for us, you picked us.
Right.
And now you've had a professional gig ever since, and you met a husband, you got married in our church.
I met my husband in the choir.
In the choir, right? And so, like, I love that they made you choose. And P.S. We're the answer to what they were praying with you for.
I know.
Isn't that's God right there?
Right.
I believe that's
I just
God.
found it. Yeah, I found it amusing.
Yeah.
That
Well, and
they
I'm
prayed.
glad.
He answered the prayer, and then but it wasn't good enough because it wasn't
Yeah,
their
way.
answer.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad it's funny to you now, because I know it was painful in the beginning
It
too.
was
Well,
devastating.
rejection is always painful, and which is what we know so well, right? But it's but you made a choice. You stood up for what you believed was right, and you stood up on the side of love, and so that tells the world who you are.
I then
And
heard
it
that
was
they
certainly a blessing
said,
to us.
I later heard a year later that they had said, I left the church to become a lesbian because none of the men in the church wanted to marry me. So
well, we're still waiting on that lesbian conversion. That has not happened. None of us expected it. Yeah, but yeah, so they're no fortune tellers. We know that. But no, you picked love. That is love of music, love of people, and you weren't cowed or intimidated by their prejudice. And now we have this great music program, and you've got a great marriage, and just everyone was blessed, because I mean you stood in integrity. And so I know it's not necessarily an easy story to tell, but if you're willing to tell it, I want people to hear that. Well, you know what? I told you the time would fly by, and our time is almost up.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
After you made me cry, it's okay. I got over that.
So it's a good cry. It's a beautiful cry. No, there's part two of this penultimate question, because I have one more after this. But the part two was, what's it like for you? And you said, but why should other straight people be allies to the LGBTQ plus community? If they don't know, if they do, they don't know they know. But they don't know they know gay people. They're not gay. It's not personal issue for them. Why should they care? Why should they even bother to think about this issue?
I mean, I think the answer is, why would somebody not? Because I mean, you probably do know somebody, you just don't know it, or your prejudices are blinding you to the fact that you know it. And a lot of, ironically, the biggest homophobic people I ever met in my life later came out to me,
Not funny or tragic.
I feel bad for them, but it is what it's from that religious background. If you're taught that it's wrong, and God's gonna punish you, and even though he made you who you are, how could he? Then you're saying God made a mistake, and why would God do that? So I think I just really wish that the world could come together and everybody could work together and love each other and care for each other and do unto others, as you.
Right. If only Jesus had mentioned that. Oh, wait.
All you need is love, right?
He totally did. Exactly. Well, there is, I was gonna let you get out of this, but no, you can handle it.
Okay.
It is tradition. It's a long-standing tradition that the last question on Chair in the Chair is this one. So I'm not gonna let you out of it. What happens when we die?
We go to see our loved ones.
Yeah. So you and granddad are going to see another show together?
My mom.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. We often get people from all over, but we got some great stories in our own church, and so I'm glad to share yours. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.